Welcome into Duval Daily, presented by GenJag.com. I'm Jordan DeLugo. Thank you so much for tuning in here on Tuesday, February 25th. It is Combine Week. Obviously, in Jaguars land, we had a big day yesterday with having the introductory James Gladstone press conference. You now also have Liam Cohen and James Gladstone expected to meet with the media later this morning. I think 11 and 11:30 are when they're slotted to meet with the media in Indianapolis. I will not be there for that. I'll be watching the Combine from afar. But you can probably expect to see that on Jaguars social channels, on YouTube, all that good stuff. But right now, as it's Tuesday, February 25th, and on-field work begins on Thursday for the NFL Combine, there's a lot of positions we need to look at. And we're going to, over the next couple of days, previewing the Combine because, this is exciting times. This is one of my favorite weeks of the year, NFL Combine week. Hopefully a lot of y'all feel the same way. You get to put numbers, right? And not everybody does everything. A lot of guys don't do specific drills. A lot of positions don't do specific drills. A lot of guys will just kind of sit out, but you're going to get to see some actual testing numbers. And I think that is a part of the picture. It's not the biggest part of the picture when it comes to the NFL draft, but it is a part of the picture. You want to confirm what you've seen on tape. And if you see something at the Combine that you didn't see on tape, you want to go back and cross-check and figure out what the heck's going on. What did you miss? So today we're going to look at, and maybe later today we'll look at a different position group as well, but today we're going to look at receivers because this is a team that receiver is a sneaky need. And for some it's not so sneaky, but it's interesting. You have Christian Kirk, you have Evan Ingram, you have Gabe Davis. Obviously, you have Brian Thomas Jr., who is your number one receiver, one of the top young receivers in football, bar none. But Gabe Davis, Christian Kirk, and Evan Ingram, based on each of their current contract situations and performance, it would not be shocking if none of those guys were on the Jaguars roster in 2026, right? So receiver, while you would like to have a better starting outside receiver opposite Brian Thomas Jr. than Gabe Davis this year, he is going to be on the roster because of the contract situation. But again, after 2025, that's when the Jaguars can comfortably move on and save their cap space and all that good stuff. And again, Christian Kirk may be off the roster at that time. Evan Ingram may be off the roster at that time. It could be a very different looking receiving room outside of Brian Thomas Jr. in 2026. And good teams are not only drafting for the current year, they're looking ahead at future needs and saying, is there a player that we feel very, very strongly about in this class that could eliminate that need for the following season and also help us this year? I think that's going to be the key at wide receiver for the Jaguars this year. And I think ideally you would like somebody who has inside-outside versatility, somebody who can line up in the slot and line up outside, like a la Cooper Kupp, a la Chris Godwin. Those are two very high-level examples of that, but both of those guys can find success outside and inside in their prime. And so we're going to look at a lot of receivers today and just talk about how I think the Jaguars might view them and obviously what they might do out there during testing. And we don't know everyone that's going to do everything like drill-wise. We don't know how that's going to work out. But one of my favorite drills for the receivers is the gauntlet. You just see these guys, how comfortable they are, how fast they are attacking the football. And to me, it's a good indicator of how skilled you really are and how confident you are in your hands. So we're going to just go down the list here. Jack Besh out of TCU obviously had a really tragic situation in his family with his brother being part of that New Orleans, situation down there, attack that was, very sad. So they honored his brother at the Senior Bowl all week. But beyond that, Jack Besh, I think he's a guy, 6'2", over 210 pounds. He is strong. And he has the ability to go up and get contested catches. I would not be surprised if the Jaguars really like his intangibles. They talk about that a lot. His intangibles and his tangibles. His ability to go get tight window contested catch situations, his ability to just make every play that he can out there, his blocking ability from the receiver position. I don't think he's going to run a blazing 40-yard dash, but the 40 will be interesting to see where he lands. To me, I'm guessing in the 4-5 range, but at his size, that's not a negative. But can he jump explosively? Like, can he hit the broad and the vertical jump and show out? And obviously, I think in the gauntlet, he'll probably be able to do a good job with his confident hands. But that's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. I would say mid rounds, he could sneak up into the top 60, top 70. But to me, I think he's really more of a third round type of prospect at receiver, but he has so much versatility and his ability to do all the dirty work for you is exciting. So Jack Bech, somebody to keep an eye on. Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. He, to me, he's the type of receiver that Trevor Lawrence hasn't really had at the NFL level. His skill set, he's not T. Higgins, but like in terms of the ability to go up and get the 50-50 balls, to have that catch radius, Trevor Lawrence has the type of arm and arm confidence to allow and give his receivers opportunities to go up and get the football. And you haven't had a lot of receivers that can take advantage of that in Jacksonville. In fact, the receiver who has done that the best was Marvin Jones Jr. And Marvin Jones Jr. was not in his prime when he was in Jacksonville, but I still think he was the best contested catch guy that the Jaguars have had. I think Brian Thomas Jr. can do a little bit of that as well. But Jaden Higgins can be that possession receiver, that go up and get it type of guy who also has some route running savvy at 6'4" and 217 pounds. Does not have focus drops on tape, does bring in a ton of 50-50 balls as well, does create separation on in-breaking routes and create separation down the field, has a nice release package as well. Jaden Higgins is somebody I would keep an eye on, top 50. I don't, as much as I love Jaden Higgins, I don't know that he's a top 36 player in this class, right? And the Jaguars' second round pick is at 36 overall. So we'll see about that. But overall, I do think Jaden Higgins is somebody probably should go in the second round. And so keep an eye on his testing because I don't think he's a blazer, but it'll be really interesting to see how athletic he comes out. Because I think on tape, he's a good athlete, not a great athlete. And that's, I can say the same thing about Tetairoa McMillan, who's expected to go much higher, but similar play styles, in my opinion. I think T-Mac has a little bit more smoothness to his movement skills. I think that T-Mac has a little bit more yak ability. Like once he catches the ball, he becomes a runner. Tetairoa McMillan does, and he's expected to go top 10, top 15. If the Jaguars found themselves in a trade down scenario, could Tetairoa McMillan be someone they target? I think both of those guys, those big-bodied receivers, are going to be interesting to see how they test. And obviously the combine is huge for interviews as well, which we don't get that side of it on the media side, the fan side, but it's going to be big for the teams. Make no mistake about that. Isaiah Bond is kind of a forgotten name in this class. He dealt with injuries at Texas this year, didn't have the best year, didn't have that breakout year everybody was expecting, but on tape, when Isaiah Bond is playing at his best, I think he's a guy that has great throttle control and great speed. When you have the throttle control to go along with the speed and the ability to get in and out of breaks, that's what makes you incredibly difficult to cover. That's what allows you to create a ton of separation. And I think he has pretty natural ball skills as well. The ability to track the ball down the field, to go get the football at its highest point, and to, again, be in the right spot at the right time down the field on some of these deep shots, deep targets. So Isaiah Bond, going to be fascinating to see how he performs. I mean, he's a 4-3 guy all day. So, yeah, I'll definitely be keeping an eye on him. And I think for the Jaguars, if they talk about Isaiah Bond, because the Rams have not been averse to going and getting these speedy receivers in the past. And James Gladstone comes from the Rams, obviously. I think Isaiah Bond, if he can impress them in their interviews and the background work that they're going to do on him, he might have a chance to be a Jaguar on day 2 of the NFL draft. Alec Iomanor, which my autocorrect fixed to epic IO manner out of Stanford. Canadian receiver, only like 2 years of real experience on the field at Stanford, but this is a guy who has the ability to win contested catch situation. First of all, 6'2", about 210 to 215 pounds. He has an impressive build. And when you talk about that's kind of a similar size to Jack Besh, he is much more of a pure athlete than Jack Besh is. He has some really explosive movements to him. I think he's going to test really well from a vertical jump, broad jump. I think he'll run well. The question for him is more about his polish, his consistency. I think that you have a second round receiver here, and the question is he going to end up living up to that? Is he going to even exceed that potentially? I view him as kind of like a 1B. I think he is a guy that the Jaguars could certainly target to bring in for 2025, develop them into their system, and then in 2026 you have Brian Thomas Jr., Alec Manor, two guys that can play inside and outside and bring a lot of length and athleticism to the field. Pat Bryant, just want to keep an eye on him and how he does out of Illinois just because he's a local kid. So obviously probably a day 3 pick at wide receiver, but somebody definitely to keep an eye on. Luther Burden, this guy, I mean, unbelievable, right? Luther Burden is, to me, he's getting slept on. And you know, there were some folks that really questioned Brian Thomas Jr. last year, including myself. And not that he shouldn't be a first round pick. I absolutely thought he should. And I gave the Jaguars an A+ for their ability to trade back and land him. But there were people that fairly question, is Brian Thomas Jr.'s route tree limited because of his inability to run the full route tree, or because LSU says, we've got Jaden Daniels, we've got Brian Thomas Jr., we've got Malik Neighbors, we can win on slot fades all frickin' day, right? We don't need to run the full route tree. We can produce at an extremely high level on offense without having the most expansive route tree. Missouri's situation is a little bit different. Missouri, you know, they've been a pretty good football program, but offensively at the quarterback position, they've been a little bit challenged. At the play calling in general, the usage of Luther Burden has been disappointing in my opinion. I think Luther Burden is going to test out of his mind. I think he's going to look fantastic in the gauntlet. I think he's going to put on a show at the combine. And you see people having him drop to the bottom of the first round. I think he's going to put that to bed. And I think the crux of my standpoint on Luther Burden is that I think Missouri was underutilizing what he can do, and that he's going to show at the next level. He has the ability to do everything you could ask for of a true number 1 wide receiver, offensive engine type of player. That's kind of my stance on him. Chimera Dike out of Florida, somebody who has the juice. He is super explosive. And so I want to see him test. I thought he did pretty well at the Senior Bowl overall, and I think he's someone who day 3, later in the draft, could be a steal for a team that's a guy that just is really difficult to cover and has some length to his frame. So keep an eye on him, obviously, especially if you're a Gator fan. Emeka Ibuka out of Ohio State, just a pro already. I mean, he really is a pro receiver. When you look at his ability to win with his route running, to when the ball is in the air, to use his body control, his strength, his explosiveness to go up and get the football in tight window situations. He creates separation. He will block his butt off. I think he's the type of guy that if he fell to the second round, 36 overall, even a situation where he's there at the top of day 2, I think the Jaguars might consider him even a trade-up candidate in that situation because of I think the intangibles for all these Ohio State kids that could have gotten drafted very early last year that went back to try to win a national title, which was just epic for them. I think that says a lot. I really do. So Emeka Ibuka, if he falls to the second round, I think the Jaguars will be very, very interested in him, and I think he's that type of guy. Cooper Kupp, Chris Godwin can play both inside and outside. I think Emeka Ibuka can do the same. Matthew Golden, unbelievable year at Texas, played at Houston before that. Very productive wide receiver. I don't think he has like the most consistent hands. I don't think he's necessarily as polished as some people talk about, but I do like his game a lot. I think he can run routes at a high level. I think he can adjust to the football down the field really well. I think seeing his testing numbers is really going to help paint a broader picture, bigger picture on Matthew Golden and where his ceiling could potentially be in the NFL draft out of Texas. I think some people are talking about him as like a top 20 prospect. I don't have him quite there yet. I think that he probably does deserve to go in the top 32, top 40, but I'm not quite there with the top 15, top 20 type of talk for him. We're going to talk about these rest of these receivers first. Got to remind you all about Underdog Fantasy. This basketball season, when your favorite stars score buckets, we're alley-ooping you an opportunity to win money from watching sports with Underdog. Making picks on Underdog is straightforward, and signing up is even easier. Just head over to Underdog's simple-to-use mobile app or UnderdogFantasy.com. Sign up with promo code DuvalDaily, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em entry, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. Tonight, you know what I'm looking at? Little Luka Doncic, 30.5 points, higher or lower? I think I'm going to take the higher. Why not? It's fun to see. I just can't believe the Mavericks traded him. And so I'm rooting for him because of that. It's absolutely crazy. But you also got the Magic on tonight. Got my Magic hat. We're looking for Paolo Banchero. So that's Underdog Fantasy. Promo code DuvalDaily to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus, and Colorado for some games, 21 plus Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply, void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT-STEP. That's 1-800-639-8783 or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. So, looking at the rest of the receivers, I'm interested for the Jaguars potentially in one way or the other. Torrey Horton, pro route runner, probably going to be a day 3 pick, has length. I like the way he plays the game, and he's another guy, once he catches the ball, he usually is making that first guy miss. Daniel Jackson out of Minnesota. I think he's another one that could have some of that versatility to play in the slot, to play outside. And he just plays as hard as anybody I've seen in this class at the receiver position. And I need him to be able to just test pretty well. I think he's a good athlete. I hope that he's not an average athlete when it comes to the testing. And I think he'll do well in the gauntlet and show good hands, all that stuff. Tez Johnson, I think that this stage, the combine, was built for Tez Johnson to flourish, to thrive, right? He has the speed, he has the quickness, he has the strong hands. I think he's going to put on a show, and the question is, how do teams view him from an intangible standpoint, and are teams willing to overlook the fact that he's 150-something pounds? Because if you are, you've got a hell of a receiver on your hands, slot receiver. I don't know that he's going to be taking a lot of outside reps at the NFL level. Ty Felton, out of Maryland, very impressive length, explosiveness, and athleticism. He was used in a variety of ways in their offense. I think the Jags, they really like to utilize the screen game. I think that they will with Liam Cohen at the helm there. And I think Ty Felton, he's been utilized in that way quite a bit throughout his career. So he can do that. I think he can get deep on you. Ty Felton, somebody to keep an eye on. Jalen Knoll, who I mocked to the Jaguars from Iowa State yesterday, I think he's another one that can probably play inside and outside. And I think he's got legit, if not 4.3, low 4.4 speed. And he's tough, great hands. Even though he's, a little under 6 feet, about 200 pounds, can go up and get the football in contested catch situations. I'm actually going to pull up his Senior Bowl measurements because I forgot what he actually came in at. And obviously we'll get more measurements from the combine, which is another big thing. Everybody's going to be talking about arm length. We don't have to focus on that as much now that Trent Baalke is no longer in control of the Jacksonville Jaguars roster. But still, he's not the only one that has kind of these thresholds. So Jalen Knoll, he was listed at 6'200". He came in at 5'9 3/4", so basically 5'10", 196. So not the biggest dude out there, right? But I think he plays very, very tough, physical, and fast. Xavier Restrepo, I know for a fact the Jaguars are going to like this guy's intangibles and the way he produces on the football field because as a slot receiver, and again, this is one that I don't know that he's going to be able to play outside because he's just not big or fast, particularly fast. I think he's fast enough to win. I think he's certainly quick enough and shifty enough to win. I think he's strong enough to win outside. I just don't know if he has the size profile you're looking for as an outside receiver, but I do think he can be a slot demon, and he's going to block his butt off. So that's something I think, again, if you're a team that wants to run screens, wants to run all this quick game stuff, having receivers and tight ends that can block in space is going to be critical. And Xavier Restrepo does that at a high level. He's about 5'9.5", 200 pounds. So he's kind of built like a running back out there. And he turns into a running back. He catches everything. He's somebody I expect the Jaguars to like potentially in round 3. Jalen Royals is a fascinating one out of Utah State because he had a foot injury this year. I didn't think he quite looked as explosive at the Senior Bowl coming back from that foot injury. It'll be something to watch to see, like, does he test? How does he look if he tests? Is he back to 100%? It's been a little while since the Senior Bowl. It hasn't been a ton of time. So that's one I'm keeping an eye on. Arian Smith out of Georgia. He had a good week at the Senior Bowl, and he's a speed demon. I mean, I'd be shocked if he doesn't run in the 4.3s, and he might run in the 4.2s. He is really fast, but he had a lot of drops on tape as well at Georgia. So that's something you have to try to kind of foil and figure out, can you get the most out of his skill set? Where does he come off the board? I got to imagine it's day 3, but he's got some real speed. Ricky White, I think, has a lot of juice. I don't know that he has like the crazy long speed, but I think his 0 to 10, his 10-yard split, which is another thing I love to see at the combine. How fast can you get off the line? I think Ricky White can get off the line really quickly. I think he's got short area explosiveness out of UNLV. Very productive football player. I like his game a lot. I think Kyle Williams, who, not the biggest guy, 5'10 and a quarter, 182 pounds, out of Washington State, might look out there like the most natural receiver. I think he's a natural. And he plays bigger than he is. That doesn't really matter at the combine as much because you're not playing against anybody. But I think that he's going to go out there and put on a show at the combine. Running the probably low 4.4s, jump well, look really good in all the receiving drills, the gauntlet, confident hands, all that good stuff. And then finally, the last one, Savion Williams out of TCU. What a prospect. You know, he is, we'll see officially how big he is, but we'll see what TCU lists him at. I mean, he lines up all over the place for TCU. Listed at 6'5", 225 pounds, and I believe it. Drops have been an issue for him. So seeing how he looks in the gauntlet is going to be big for him, in my opinion. But I think he's going to run in the 4.4s, if not better. I think he's probably going to jump 40-plus inches, probably be able to hit the bench press hard, even though he's got length. He's going to be a workout warrior. The question is, can teams foil that with kind of his rawness as a receiver? He looks like an offensive weapon to me right now. As a receiver, you have to develop the ability to get off the line. You have to develop the route running. You have to eliminate some of the focus drops. I mean, I saw in week 1 last year, watched that game, he had 3 straight drops, and it just looked like he had the yips. So he's a fascinating prospect. I can't wait to see how he performs. I think he's going to put a show on and have a lot of buzz coming out of the combine. But that'll do it for the wide receiver kind of preview for the Jaguars. I don't think that Savion's going to be somebody they target. Of course, having said that, I'll probably draft him. But there are a number of guys, as we mentioned, who I do think the Jaguars will have a really keen eye on. Xavier Restrepo, Jalen Knoll, Daniel Jackson, obviously the top guys, Burden, T-Mac. I think if Emeka Ibuka or Matthew Golden is there in the second round, those are guys to watch as well. So really appreciate y'all tuning in. We'll be talking about more position groups, probably position groups of need for the Jaguars over the next couple of days as we get ready for the combine on-field work to get kicked off on Thursday. Really appreciate y'all tuning in. If you enjoy the content, please like and subscribe. Y'all have a good one.